The sky was dark and full of fire. Eli Carter held the controls tight, trying to keep his small cargo ship steady. Red warning lights flashed across the screen, and smoke filled the cockpit. He coughed, eyes burning, but he didn't stop. He had seen something, a strange signal coming from a small moon. A distress beacon, weak, almost broken, but clearly someone was in trouble. Command told him not to go, that it was a trap or just wreckage. But Eli turned the ship anyway, heart pounding. He didn't know who was out there, human or alien, but someone needed help. As he got closer to the moon, the signal became clearer. It was coming from an escape pod, half buried in the red sand. His ship shook violently as he entered the planet's thin atmosphere. The engines screamed, metal groaned, and something exploded near the back. Still, Eli didn't pull away. He was going to land, even if it killed him. The ship crashed hard, sliding across the sharp rocks and broken land. When it stopped, the front windows were cracked, and sparks flew from the dashboard. Eli grabbed his jacket, an oxygen mask, and a medkit, then kicked the side door open. The air outside stung his skin like tiny blades. The wind carried acid dust, and the sky glowed red. But he didn't care. He ran toward the escape pod, heart thumping like a drum. It was still smoking. One side completely crushed. He wiped the ash from the glass window and looked inside. There, curled up and unmoving, was an alien woman, tall, with light blue skin and glowing silver patterns along her arms. She wasn't breathing properly, and blood was leaking from her. Sighed, Eli didn't stop to think. He slammed the emergency latch. Forcing the door open, heat rushed out, and smoke covered everything. He reached in, pulling her out carefully. Her body was heavier than he expected. She groaned weakly as he lifted her, but she didn't wake up. Behind them, the escape pod cracked again, about to explode. Eli threw himself and the alien to the side, just as fire burst from the wreckage. They rolled into the dust, gasping. He looked down. His jacket was half melted from the heat. His hands were burned, but he held on to her tightly. She was still alive. He could feel a faint pulse against his arm, but they couldn't stay there. The wind howled louder, and the dust was becoming thicker. He had to find shelter. The crash had damaged his scanner. But he remembered passing a cliffside while coming down. If he could reach it, maybe there was a cave or a shadow where they could hide. Eli placed the alien woman gently on the ground and wrapped her in his only heated blanket. Then he pulled her onto a makeshift sled made from parts of his ship. Step by step, he dragged her through the sandstorm. Coughing and limping, every few meters he stopped to catch his breath, but he never let go of the sled. His skin was starting to blister, and the mask filters were wearing out. Still, he kept going, after what felt like forever. He found a rocky overhang. It wasn't much, but it blocked the wind. He pulled her under and collapsed beside her. His whole body shook from pain and exhaustion. He looked at her face, calm, beautiful, and completely alien. Her eyes were shut, lips slightly open. She looked like she came from a dream. Eli took a water pack and gently touched it to her lips. Some drops went in. She coughed softly. Then her fingers moved. Eli smiled, feeling tears in his eyes. She was alive. "You're safe now," he whispered, even though he knew she couldn't understand. "You're not alone." As night fell, the sky turned deep purple. Lightning flashed across the distance, lighting up the broken land. Eli lay close beside her, sharing what warmth he could. His hands were burned, his ship was destroyed, and help was far away. But none of that mattered right now. He had saved a life no one else cared about, and somehow, deep inside, he knew this was just the beginning. Far above them, a patrol ship picked up the emergency signal. But so did someone else, a shadow in space that didn't like humans helping aliens. Danger was coming again, but for tonight. Under the burning sky, two strangers had found a reason to live. Together, Eli woke up to the sound of coughing. The alien woman was moving, her chest rising and falling in slow, shaky breaths. He blinked away the crust of sand on his eyelashes and sat up slowly. His back ached and his arms were sore from dragging her through the storm, but pain didn't matter right now. She was alive, and that gave him strength. The overhang above them held off most of the acid dust, but some still crept in with the wind. Eli reached for the torn fabric from his emergency kit and patched the cracks in the rocky wall. Then he checked on the alien woman. Her skin was cooler now, less pale, but her wounds still bled slowly. He gently peeled open her suit's side to see the damage, not fatal. But deep, he cleaned the gash using purified water and sealed it. With a gel strip from his medkit, she moaned softly, her body twitching at the touch. Then her eyes opened silver and wide, filled with fear. "It's okay," Eli said softly, holding up his hands to show he wasn't a threat. "You're safe." She didn't understand the words, but the tone made her pause. Her lips moved, forming sounds that didn't match any human language. Sharp consonants, musical tones, soft clicks, like wind blowing through glass. Eli tried to smile, but she backed away, pressing against the wall. "Calm down," he said. Then slowly took off his oxygen mask and placed it beside her. He opened a ration bar and split it in half. One piece he placed near her. The other he bit into to show it was safe. She stared at him for a long time, breathing hard. Then, trembling, she reached for the food. Her fingers were long and delicate, glowing faintly under the skin. She took a small bite, then more. Finally, her shoulders lowered a little. Eli leaned back, sighing in relief. They still couldn't talk. But trust had started to grow. He pointed to himself, Eli. Then he pointed at her. Raising an eyebrow, she blinked. Tilting her head, he tried. Again, tapping his chest. Eli, understanding, flickered in her eyes. She touched her own chest and said, "Sarah, Sarah," he repeated, a soft, alien name. It felt like wind and light mixed together. She nodded once, still cautious, but the fear was fading. He smiled wider, then reached into his gear and pulled out a small translator chip. It was old tech, not perfect, but maybe good enough. He showed it to her. Then slowly reached forward. She tensed, but didn't pull away. He gently attached it to the side of her neck, where her skin pulsed with light. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small light blinked green on the chip. "Ken, you understand?" "This language?" A robotic voice asked in her tone. Sarah blinked in shock, then whispered, "What is this?" The translator repeated her words in English, and Eli laughed in surprise. "It works," he said. Sarah looked confused, but she didn't run. "You saved me," she whispered, the translator echoing her soft words. "Why?" Eli looked at her burned arm, the blood-soaked suit, her glowing eyes full of confusion and fear. "Because you are dying," he said simply. "No one should die like that." Sarah stared at him, her lips trembling. "In my world, humans are enemies," she whispered. "You steal, burn, destroy. I'm not like that," Eli said, his voice steady. "Maybe I'm the first human who thinks differently." She looked away, ashamed. "My people think all humans are monsters, I thought. You would leave me behind. I almost died getting to you." Eli replied with a dry chuckle. Leaving wasn't an option. Sarah closed her eyes, her hands resting on her lap. "You burned your skin. Your ship is broken. And still, you saved me." Her voice was low, like she was speaking to herself. "Why?" Eli didn't answer right away. The firelight from a small emergency lamp flickered across their faces. Finally, he said, "Because life matters. Yours matters." Silence filled the shelter. But it wasn't heavy. It was warm, like something new had just begun. Suddenly, a sharp beep came from Eli's wrist unit. He checked the screen. The emergency signal had been picked up, but the ID code wasn't from any rescue ship. His smile vanished. "What is it?" Sarah asked, sensing his fear. "Someone got our signal," he said, standing up slowly. "But it's not help." Sarah's eyes widened. "Slavers," she whispered. Eli nodded. "We need to move, even in her weak state." Sarah stood beside him. For a moment, they looked at each other. One human, one alien, both alone in the universe. But now, it's not truly alone anymore. "We survived together," she said. Eli looked into her glowing eyes and gave a nod. "Together." The cave was cold, but quiet. Outside, the wind still howled with acid-laced dust. Eli worked quickly, gathering broken metal parts, wires, and anything useful from his small crash kit. Sarah sat nearby, wrapped in the last heating blanket, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly in the dark. She watched him closely, her eyes sharp and focused. Her injuries still hurt, but her mind was clear now. She wanted answers, and she wanted to understand the strange human who saved her. Eli didn't say much. He was building something, a portable transmitter. It was old tech, scavenged and barely holding together, but it might be enough to call for help again this time. With a stronger encryption code, Sarah finally spoke. Her voice, quiet but steady. "My name is Sarah Vallon," she said. The translator chip echoed softly in English. "I was born on Lysera, a moon hidden from trade routes. I am a scientist." Eli looked up from his tools, surprised. "Scientist?" he asked, wiping sweat from his brow. She nodded. "I study planetary life. I was on a research ship, but we were ambushed by slavers." Eli asked. "Yes," Sarah said, her voice growing tight. "They took everything, killed half my team. I escaped in a pod, but they shot it down." She looked at him now with strange eyes full of questions. "And you? What are you, Eli Carter?" Eli chuckled lightly, sitting beside her with a sigh. "I'm no hero," he said. "It's just a freelance cargo pilot, hauling parts, food, and sometimes garbage across empty space." "Then why did you come?" she asked, her tone more intense. "My signal was weak. Dangerous zone. No one else would risk it." "I don't know," Eli replied, looking away. "I just couldn't ignore it." "You sounded afraid." Sarah blinked, startled by the honesty in his voice. In her world, everything had a cost, a reason, a benefit. No one did things for free. No one risked their life for someone they didn't know. But Eli had, and it confused her heart. She lowered her eyes. "My people say humans care only for themselves, that they burn planets, steal from the weak, destroy peace." "I've heard the same about aliens," Eli said, with a half-smile. "Especially glowing ones with sharp claws." Sarah smiled faintly at that. Her hand brushed the glowing marks along her arm. "These are not weapons," she said. "They are lifelines. They connect me to energy sources, like a walking battery." Eli joked. "More like a living translator," she replied. "Except I was never taught how to speak to humans." They sat in silence again, not awkward, but curious. There was a strange calm between them now, built on shared pain and quiet. Bravery. Eli looked at her more closely. Her silver hair had fallen across her face, soft and shimmering in the lamp's light. Her eyes were still tired, but alert. She wasn't just surviving. She was watching him, learning him. Suddenly, Sarah leaned forward. "You burned your hands when pulling me out," she said, her voice filled with guilt. Eli looked down at the raw skin on his fingers. "Now bandaged, it's nothing," he said. "It saved your life, didn't it?" "But why would you do that for a stranger?" she asked again. Eli met her eyes. "Because no one else would," he said. And you didn't deserve to die in a broken pod? Not like that. Something inside Sarah cracked. Like a wall breaking. In her world, she was just a name, a mind, a rank, a function. But here, to this human, she was worth saving, simply because she was alive. Her throat tightened, and she looked away quickly. "I owe you," she whispered. "No," Eli said gently. "You don't." She turned back. To him slowly, "I will repay this," she said, her voice firmer now. "Not because I must, but because I choose to." Eli nodded, understanding her need for honor. But he also saw something else in her eyes. Not debt, not duty, but something deeper. Respect, maybe, or the beginning of something more. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed above them. Eli's transmitter beeped twice. A signal had been caught. He grabbed it, scanning the code. "Please tell me that's rescue." Sarah said, tense. Eli's jaw tightened. "No, it's not," he said. "It's the same ID code from earlier. The slavers found us again." Sarah stood, her legs still weak but ready. "We have to move," she said. Eli grabbed his gear, quickly packing the transmitter and tools. "There's a deeper cave system under this ridge," he said. "If we get far enough in, maybe we can lose them." Sarah nodded, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I'll help you walk," Eli said. "No," Sarah replied. "I'll help you." They looked at each other for a moment. Different species, different worlds, but something was forming between them. Not just survival, not just thanks. It was something fragile, something important. And it had just begun. The cave air grew colder as Eli and Sarah stepped deeper into the twisting tunnel. The sharp sound of their boots echoed softly along the stone floor. Above them, dust fell from cracks in the ceiling, the result of the approaching ship landing nearby. They didn't speak. There wasn't time. They both knew what that signal meant. Slavers were coming, and they were close. Eli held the damaged transmitter close to his chest. It still beeped occasionally, searching for signals. But every time he heard that sound now, his chest tightened with fear. He had only wanted to help someone in need. Now that kindness had drawn in death. Sarah moved ahead, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Her alien vision could pick up subtle reflections in the rock. Her hand touched the cave walls as if she could feel something deeper inside them. Eli watched her silently, amazed again at how someone so wounded could move with such quiet strength. After 20 minutes of climbing, crawling, stumbling through the narrow passages, they reached a hollow chamber. It was wide and open. With sharp crystals growing from the walls, blue light shimmered faintly through them. Casting patterns across the ground, Eli collapsed against a boulder. Breathing hard, his muscles ached, and his burns still throbbed, but he refused to complain. Sarah crouched near the edge of the chamber, listening. Her ears twitched at the faint vibrations coming through the ground. Then she turned back to Eli, her face tense. "They're inside the cave," she whispered. "They're hunting us." Eli clenched his fists. "Then we need to make a stand," he said. "No." Sarah replied quickly. "Not here. There's an old ventilation shaft below us. If we drop into it, we might reach the river tunnels." Eli raised an eyebrow. "River tunnels?" "They're natural," she said. "My people used them long ago when this moon had more life. I remember them from our maps." He nodded slowly, trusting her knowledge. Sarah scanned the floor and found a cracked section of rock. She pulled out a thin blade from her boot, hidden even from Eli until now. With a few fast movements, she loosened the weak stone and revealed a narrow shaft. Dark, deep, and cold. Eli stared into it, then looked at Sarah. "You sure this isn't a one-way drop?" "No," she said honestly. "But if we stay here, the slavers will find us." Without waiting, she jumped. Her body twisted midair and vanished into the shaft. A second later, Eli heard a splash, followed by her voice. "It's water." She called, cold but not deep. He didn't think twice. He slid into the hole and landed with a rough splash. The water was freezing, but shallow. Only to his knees he stood, teeth chattering, and looked around. They were in a tunnel carved by time, glowing blue veins running through the rock. Sarah moved ahead, leading him through the winding path. The air was heavy with moisture, and every step echoed like thunder. Behind them, they heard voices, distorted, mechanical, but clear. The slavers were tracking their heat signatures. "We need to hide our trail," Sarah said. She stopped and activated something on her belt. A small device that shimmered for a moment before fading. "Cloaking beacon," she explained. "Short range, but it'll buy us time." They moved again, faster now. Eli slipped once, and Sarah grabbed his arm before he fell. She didn't let go afterward. Her hand stayed on his wrist, firm but gentle. He didn't mind. After what felt like hours, they reached a wide cavern where the water ran into a pool. Crystals hung like icicles from the ceiling. Glowing softly, it was beautiful, peaceful, and dangerous, because here, the path split in two. Many directions. Sarah stopped and turned to Eli. "We can rest here," she said, "but just for a minute." He nodded and sat down near the pool, dipping his hands into the water to clean his burns. Sarah sat beside him, quiet, watching the water shimmer. "You should have left me in that escape pod," she said suddenly. Eli looked at her, surprised. "You would have died," he replied. "I know," she whispered. "That's why I don't understand," he shrugged. "Maybe I just hate seeing someone suffer. Maybe I saw something in you, in me," she asked, her voice barely audible. "You were broken. But you still looked alive," he said. "Like someone worth saving." She turned away, hiding her face. But her hand reached for his again. Not out of fear this time, out of something. Warmer, something new. Suddenly, the beacon flickered and died. Sarah looked up sharply. "They're close again," she said. "We need to split." "What?" Eli asked. "If we go together, they'll catch both of us," she said. "But if I lead them away—" "No," Eli said firmly. "I didn't risk my life to lose you now." She stared at him, something strong passing between their eyes. Then she nodded slowly. Together, then they stood, side by side, one human and one alien, no longer strangers. And as they stepped into the next tunnel, they both knew the galaxy was watching, and nothing would ever be the same again. The tunnel walls pulsed with faint blue light as Sarah and Eli moved deeper into the underground maze. The glow from the crystals faded behind them, swallowed by the darkness they left behind. Eli's breathing was sharp, each step sending jolts. Of pain through his burned legs, Sarah stayed beside him, her hand hovering near his elbow, ready to catch him if he stumbled. They didn't speak much. There wasn't time. The slavers were getting closer, and soon, hiding would no longer be an option. A faint vibration tickled Sarah's feet. She stopped and pressed her hand against the wall. "They're almost here," she whispered. "They've entered the river tunnel." Eli checked the power cell on his last stun grenade. Low charge, maybe one good blast left, not enough for a full squad of armed raiders. "There's a narrow bend up ahead," Sarah said, pointing toward a sloped passage. "It leads into a natural cavern with a high drop and only one way in. We can use it." Eli nodded. "If we're going to fight, we make it count." They hurried forward, the tunnel tightening until they had to crawl at the end. The ground gave way into a large open space, a dome-shaped cavern with sharp crystal spikes above and below. A natural trap. Sarah helped Eli down first, then followed with graceful movement, despite her injuries. The moment their boots touched the cavern floor, Eli began setting up traps. He used broken pieces from his transmitter and rigged them with wire and heat coils. Primitive landmines, crude but effective. Sarah added her tech, activating a pulse orb and sticking it to the upper wall, where it would drop on command. Then, they waited, hidden behind a jagged stone, weapons ready. The silence was thick, broken only by distant echoes. Eli felt his heart pounding in his chest like a war drum. Sarah knelt beside him, her eyes scanning the darkness. "I never killed anyone before," she whispered. "I was trained to heal, to study, not to fight." Eli looked at her, then handed her a small plasma cutter. "Protect yourself," he said. "I'll handle the rest." But Sarah didn't take the weapon. Instead, she placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "No," she said softly. "We fight together." The sound of boots on stone echoed through the chamber. Then shadows moved, creeping into the cavern from the tight tunnel. 3 slavers, clad in dark armor, holding long rifles with blinking lights. They entered cautiously, scanning for movement. The first stepped on a trigger plate. There was a loud pop, and a burst of heat slammed into his legs. He screamed and fell, writhing on the ground. The others fired blindly, lighting up the cavern in flashes of blue and red. Eli rose from cover and threw the stun grenade. It landed in the middle of the group and exploded in a bright pulse. The nearest slaver dropped instantly, his helmet sparking, but the last one dodged and rolled behind a stone. He aimed directly at Eli and fired. The bolt hit Eli's side, sending him crashing into the wall. "Eli!" Sarah cried, her voice trembling. She rushed toward him, but the slaver blocked her path. He raised his rifle, ready to fire again. Something inside Sarah snapped. Her glowing veins flared bright blue, and her body moved on instinct. She leaped forward, her claws extended, with a fierce scream. She slashed across the slaver's arm, forcing him to drop his weapon. He tried to punch her, but she ducked, rolled, and struck again, this time to his chest. The armor cracked, sparks flew, and the slaver stumbled backward into a spike jutting from the wall. He fell, unmoving, breathing hard. Sarah turned and dropped beside Eli. He was conscious, but barely. His side burned and bleeding. "You idiot," she whispered, tears in her voice. "You were supposed to be careful." Eli gave a weak grin. "Guess I'm not good at that," he said. "Did we win?" "Yes," she said, resting her forehead against his. "You foolish, kind man. We won." She pulled out a patch from her suit and pressed it to his wound. It hissed softly, releasing a healing gel. Eli groaned but nodded. "Thanks," he whispered. "I think you just saved me this time." Sarah didn't answer. She was too focused on keeping him awake, too focused on the fact that she almost lost him. Outside, more boots echoed in the tunnels. More were coming, but this time they didn't run. Sarah activated her distress beacon again, this time with a stronger code from her scientist's ID. It pulsed once, then twice. A reply came almost instantly. Her people had received it. Help was on the way. She looked at Eli and smiled through the pain. "Hold on," she whispered. "You're not done saving lives yet." Eli's eyes fluttered, but when he looked at her, there was peace in his gaze. He had come to this planet alone, expecting nothing, but now, lying beside this alien woman who had once been a stranger, he felt something he hadn't felt in years, purpose, and just maybe something more. Asterisk. The rescue ship cut through the clouds of the acid-covered moon like a blade of light. Its wings shimmered with protective shielding, glowing in waves of pale silver and deep blue. It bore the crest of Sarah's people, the Lysoran crest, a circle wrapped in flowing stars. As it hovered above the cave system, searchlights scanned the surface, then a bright blue beam shot down and locked on to Sarah's beacon. Inside the cavern, Sarah watched the signal grow stronger. She knelt beside Eli, who had slipped in and out of sleep. His face was pale, and his side still bled through the bandages, but he was alive, breathing, whispering words she couldn't always hear. She wiped dust from his forehead and leaned close. "They're coming, Eli," she said softly. Just hold on a little longer, Eli. Blinked slowly, his voice cracked and dry. You're glowing again, he said, with a faint smile. Is that a good sign? Sarah laughed gently, brushing his hair back. It means I'm connected, she said. It means hope is near. Moments later, a hiss echoed above them. A rescue pod lowered from the ship and hovered outside the cavern mouth, to Lysarin. Soldiers jumped down, weapons drawn, scanning the shadows. Sarah stood quickly, waving her arms. Here, she called. I'm Sarah Vallon, scientist, survivor. The soldiers rushed forward, recognizing her markings and voice. Their eyes widened as they saw Eli beside her. A human, injured, weak, but alive. What is this? One soldier asked, aiming a weapon at Eli. Sarah stepped between them, her arms wide. He saved me, she said sharply. If not for him, I'd be dead. But he's human, the other said, eyes narrowing. Our laws, he is not. A threat, Sarah said, her voice firm. He is the reason I'm standing here. And if you harm him, I will stand against you. The soldiers hesitated, unsure how to respond. Finally, one of them lowered his weapon, the other called. In a medical transport drone, Eli was lifted carefully onto the platform, his body shaking from pain and exhaustion. Sarah walked beside him, her hand never leaving his. Even as the ship pulled them upward, even as the wind howled below, she didn't let go. The rescue ships. Interior was bright, clean, and full of unfamiliar sounds. Medical machines scanned Eli's body and began treating his burns and broken ribs. Sarah watched silently, still wearing her dusty suit, her skin glowing faintly under the lights. A Lysarin officer entered the room. Dressed in a formal robe and carrying a glowing scroll, he looked at Sarah, then at Eli. You have violated contact laws, he said. You brought a human aboard into Lysarin airspace. Sarah stood tall, her expression unshaken. I did what was right, she said. He saved me, and I owe him more than gratitude. The officer looked at Eli, who lay still, half-conscious but listening. He risked his life to save yours. The officer asked, Yes. Sarah said, Without him, I would be ashes in a wrecked pod. The officer sighed and tapped the scroll. Then he will be protected under emergency alliance law. Temporary status, not enough, Sarah said softly. I want him granted safe passage, and I want him to stay with me. The room fell silent. The officer raised an eyebrow. You speak as if he is family. Sarah looked down at Eli, then back up. Her voice was calm, but filled with emotion. He became my protector, my partner in survival, she said. And now, he is something more. The officer nodded once and turned to leave. Then you must face the council when we return. I will, Sarah said, without fear. Later. As the ship floated above the stars, Eli woke again, his eyes open to see Sarah sitting beside him, holding a cup of blue liquid. He smiled weakly. Is that soup? It's better, she said, helping him sip. It's life medicine. He chuckled softly, coughing a little. Feels like being adopted by aliens. Sarah nodded, her eyes serious. You are under my care now, she said, and I don't let go of people who matter. Eli stared at her, his chest tight from more than just wounds. You mean that? He whispered. Yes, she replied, touching his hand. You saved my life, Eli. Now, it's my turn to save yours. He squeezed her fingers, not with strength, but with meaning. In that moment, two souls from different worlds understood something without needing more words. They were no longer just human and alien, no longer just rescuer and survivor. They were bonded by pain, by choice, by something deeper. The stars outside blinked like distant memories, but inside that ship, something new was beginning, something neither of them had ever planned, and it had already changed everything. Eli Carter stood under the twin suns of Lysara. A gentle breeze moved through the silver-leafed trees, their long branches glowing softly under the light. He wore a simple robe, loose and comfortable, stitched by Sarah's own hands. For the first time in many days, he felt clean, fed, and safe. But his heart still beat fast, because today he would stand before Sarah's people, behind him. The great marble steps of the council hall stretched high into the sky. Alien voices echoed from inside, some curious, some angry, and some afraid. Humans had never walked freely on Lysaron soil until now. Sarah stood beside him, her eyes sharp and steady. She wore her ceremonial bands, each one glowing in sequins along her arms. Her silver hair had been braided, and her posture was strong. She looked like a leader, and today she was. "Are you sure about this?" Eli asked softly. Sarah looked at him and gave a small smile. "I've never been more sure," she said. "Come with me." They stepped into the council hall together. The chamber was vast, shaped like a spiral, with floating platforms instead of chairs. Dozens of council members watched from above, their glowing eyes focused on the pair below. A deep voice echoed through the space. "Sarah Vallon, you bring a human into our sacred hall. You claim he saved your life, but does that make him one of us?" Sarah stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "Eli Carter did not come here for reward," she said. "He heard a distress call from a stranger on a world where he had nothing to gain, and he risked his ship, his body, and his life to answer it." The murmurs above turned quiet. She continued, "In doing so, he saved me. Not just my body, but my will to live." Eli stood behind her, unsure if he should speak. But Sarah reached back and took his hand in front of everyone. "I offer him a place in our world," she said, "not as a pet, not as a guest, but as an equal, as someone I have chosen." Gasps moved through the chamber like wind through dry leaves. "To choose a human," one counselor whispered. "To stand beside him," said another. "Unheard of," said a third, but none of them stepped down to stop her. Eli stepped forward now, his voice shaking but honest. "I didn't know who she was," he said. "When I found her, I just knew she needed help, and I couldn't walk away." He looked around, eyes meeting those of the Lysaran leaders. "I'm not here to take anything," he said. "I'm here because someone I cared about didn't let me die, and because I want to stay." Sarah smiled faintly, pride glowing in her eyes. The council whispered for a long time, voices blending like music and wind. Then the lead counselor raised his hand. "You both broke rules," he said. "But you reminded us why rules can change." He looked at Sarah. "You will bear the responsibility of this choice. If the human stays, he stays under your name. I accept that." Sarah said at once, "I accept him." Eli stared at her, stunned. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means," she said gently, "you belong now." Later that evening, they walked through the glowing gardens of Sarah's home. Small lights floated like fireflies, and music played from soft stones in the trees. Eli sat on a bench made from crystal and looked up at the stars. So many of them had seemed lonely before. Now they didn't. Sarah sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. They said nothing for a while, just silence and breathing, just comfort and presence. "You could have left me," Eli said finally, "after I passed out on the rescue ship." Sarah turned her head and looked up at him. "I couldn't," she said. "You weren't just someone who saved me. You became someone I couldn't lose." Eli touched her hand, gently tracing the glowing lines on her skin. "What do you owe me now?" he teased. Sarah smiled. "More than gratitude," she said, "much more." He looked into her eyes, not human eyes, but full of warmth all the same, and he realized he didn't want to go back, didn't want to fly alone again, didn't want to live in a world where she wasn't by his side. "I think I'm where I'm supposed to be," he said quietly. Sarah nodded. "So am I, far above." The stars watched in silence. They had seen battles, fire, war, and sorrow. But tonight, they saw something rare, a bond that crossed species. Cultures, fears, and laws, something built not on power, but on choice. And it all began with one human who refused to walk away.